Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Anyone But You, the new rom-com from Easy A director Will Gluck. You remember Easy A movie, that Andy that put old Emma Stone on the map? We're also going to take a look at Society of the Snow on Netflix. I feel like this one has gone under the radar, which is fitting considering the subject matter. It's actually kind of a cool feature. I'm really excited to talk about it. Stick around for the review. We're going to talk about some trailers, some things coming out that you're going to want to keep an eye on in 2024. Trailers are dropping every day now. We got 4 hot ones we want to look at, things that are worth talking about. We're going to show you what those are. We're going to review them, tell you if we think they're worth your time. Before we get to all that, we need to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Andy, Christopher Nolan's Tenet is coming back to theaters. I don't believe it. How appropriate for Tenet to come back around, right? Like, you just can't. It's like a loop almost. Boy.
Yeah, it's coming back at us, from the future.
Yeah, it sure is. Fans of the show remember when we covered Tenet during the pandemic. Hotly debated whether or not Tenet should have come out in theaters then. Chris Nolan was not really pleased with the performance of how it did, I think. It affected his relationship with Warner Brothers. He ended up going to Universal to make Oppenheimer. Now, Tenet is coming back. Andy, this is a good move, right? Like, low-key.
Right, so this is actually part of the content drought that we are squarely in due to the labor strikes from last year. We knew that there was going to be a lot of content delays and that theaters and TV were going to be short for things to put out. And so what a lot of theaters are doing is putting out old stuff that you might want to catch again in theater. A tried and true method, but also Chris Nolan is really hot right now with the success of Oppenheimer. Bit large format things like IMAX are kind of just more popular now as well. So it makes sense to bring this back into theaters.
It is a trip. As somebody who enjoyed Tenet, even though it is weird, all right, I'll admit it's definitely odd. I'm looking forward to, I think, catching it again if I can in the biggest format possible, which is where it's going. It's going to IMAX theaters, just like where Oppenheimer had its runaway success, and more importantly, 70 millimeter film for you film heads out there. That means like very high resolution, very crisp image. If you can catch it in 70 millimeter
Tenet
IMAX,
head.
where we saw Oppenheimer, oh my God, it is the best. It's the best possible way to do it. It is the highest possible. It's the highest resolution way to see the film. It is the way Chris Nolan says he intends. So if you have the means, you can check out the movie's website. Not that this is a sponsored thing or anything, because it's not. But I've been looking at it myself to get tickets. Tenetfilm.com is it. They just spun up the same website again. It's got the 70 millimeter IMAX thing down there. You can find showtimes. For some reason, I haven't been able to get them at Cinemark around here. I don't know why, but keep an eye out. I know AMC's got tickets. And yeah, see if you can catch Tenet in theaters. And go back and check out our review of when we covered Tenet during the pandemic. It was a whole thing. We talked about it a lot. Our next story this week, out of theaters into streamers, Netflix fully expects to phase out their cheapest no ads plan. This is a bummer, right? Because some of us don't like watching ads on Netflix, and we don't like the idea of either having to pick between a more expensive plan or advertisements. I know Amazon's kind of doing something similar, right, with their ads recently. What's going on, Andy?
So it turns out that the ad tiers of all these streaming services is actually really popular because they're a lot cheaper. They're generally like $10 or less for the ad supported tier. So if you don't mind having some ads in your things, it's cheaper for the household, and the streamers get more money overall because they get advertising dollars as well as subscriber money. And this has been huge for Netflix. It accounts for 40% of all signups. They've just been growing more and more because of these ad tiers. And if you want zero ads, you're gonna have to pay a pretty hefty sum. I think it's almost $20 a month now to have the ad tier plan. And they had kind of a middle tier if you had signed up a couple of years ago, where you could get, it was like $11 or $12 to not have any ads, and that's what they're doing away with because it's the ad supported things just more popular, more profitable.
I feel like I need a big like detective's corkboard with like red string where I could like connect all of the Netflix plans, because I cannot keep up with how the packages work now and what's available. I like, honestly, it's difficult for me to keep up with most of them. And it seems like Netflix, at least in this way, is streamlining that a little, right? Like reduce that number of options, get everybody kind of in the same place. Personally, I don't like watching ads with my streaming stuff. I've been spoiled. I've been spoiled by no ads culture. I can't help it. I feel like an old man shouting at clouds. But Netflix has always been doing things kind of their way, and for what it's worth, following the money makes sense. It's not cheap to run a streaming service. If you make more money running ads on stuff, then I guess that's the way to do it, even if maybe people don't love that. People don't like being limited by choice, right? Something kind of congruous to this, not really the same story, but something I saw earlier that I just wanted to report on this week regarding Netflix's film chief leaving the company. Scott Stuber, Hollywood Reporter, reported on this, so I'll keep it tight. But I just wanted to I've always been perplexed by Netflix's film strategy, not really putting stuff in theaters, putting stuff straight to streaming, and they make like 100 movies a year. Scott Stuber is apparently the guy that headed up all that. He's been at Netflix for 7 years. He is leaving. And what's interesting is him leaving has cited a bunch of questions. Hey, is Netflix going to start putting things in theaters now? Are we going to get Rian Johnson's next Knives Out movie in theaters? Or are they going to make higher budget, more specific concept stuff rather than like scattershot? And it seems like from all we can find out, it's pretty much Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos who decided all of these things. Ted Sarandos is the reason that films don't go to theaters. Ted Sarandos is the reason that they make so many movies and they're all getting better,
Garbage.
but like, yeah, like just pretty lowbrow. Apparently this is like his whole thing. He loves this. He specifically is like, we are not putting films in theaters. It's part of the reason Stuber is leaving the company. So Netflix isn't going to change, I guess, as far as film goes. And I think when it comes to pricing, they're just going to keep marching forward, man. They're going to go to the beat of their own drum.
Yeah, what the other streamers are doing, like Apple, they're not just, they don't want to just have a service. They want to be more influential in like the Hollywood space. They want to be known as like Universal or Paramount or Warner Brothers. They want to be a respected studio known for like quality films. And so that's why Apple is doing the theatrical to then streaming model, but Netflix doesn't want to do that. And I don't know, it's one of those things that they're hurting their own kind of like Hollywood capital by not putting things in theaters.
Yeah, they really are. It's actually funny you mentioned Apple. Hollywood Reporter here was clear to mention that Netflix also has never won a Best Picture Oscar, which is obviously a big prize, whereas Apple hit it first try with Coda in 2021. There you go.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, well
That's
fine.
Not for Coda, but for Netflix
Right.
has spent so much money on prestige films to try and win the Best Picture Oscar, and they have yet to do it, and they have such deep pockets, and so does Apple. But Apple didn't have to push near as hard as Netflix has.
No. Keep it here on Off Script for more on what Netflix is doing. A couple of fun announcements regarding some casting. First off, Dakota Johnson in Madam Web seems to be on a PR tear to distance herself from any creative decisions in this movie. And I think it's hilarious. She said it was absolutely psychotic to film Madam Web with blue screen. And she, quote, doesn't know if this is going to be good at all. This is incredible. Andy, it's so rare an actor or actress breaks free of the bounds of good public relations in marketing and just says how they feel, which is, boy, I don't know what's happening in Madam Web. What do you think of this?
Yeah, normally a star would be promoting, the film that they're the lead in, like she is in Madam Web. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like a great film. We know Sony Marvel is kind of a B tier when it comes to their superhero stuff, but they are like the Venom movies have been really successful. This looks kind of cheesy, but I think it could like meme its way to success because it's just it doesn't have a lot of competition. It's still kind of in that superhero genre. People might just come out to see the car wreck, but she's definitely Dakota Johnson trying to get away from it. She talked about like all we did was film on blue screens. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. Where show up on screen 7. It's that whole bit. And yeah, she left her talent agency after I think the trailer dropped or something. It seems like she's not real happy with having picked this project.
Yeah, she said all this in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, by the way, which is where you're supposed to be promoting films. And for what it's worth, it comes off innocent enough in the way that she's like, I've never worked on a big CGI feature like this. I don't know how they're going to fill it in. Just like Andy said, it's a lot like how Christian Bale was with the new Thor. He was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just said the lines they said, and they seemed to tell me it was good enough. So I can appreciate her at least like staying away from the bad optics of intentionally bombing your own movie. But I think we can read between the lines here. Dakota Johnson is somebody who's particularly dedicated to her craft, at least in what I've seen. Just not long ago, I rewatched Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria. She's leading that. She trained for months to do those dances. Her and Mia Goth did them together for like 4 months or something. Like they specifically trained. They got to be super good friends. They still are reportedly, like, cause she's a supporting actress in that movie. Like months and months and months of work to play the lead in Suspiria. And then she like shows up to the Madam Web set having no idea what's going on and going to interviews like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be good. I think it's very obvious she's looking for a change. I bet she doesn't do many more features like this one. I think she'll probably pivot into indie, right, or something more low key after this. I can hope at least.
Well, it's difficult for an actor because the superhero thing pays pretty well if you can be a regular and it can be a return thing. But no one really wants to hop on the Marvel train, and DC is just getting started, so it's an interesting place as an actor because it used to be that you would eat well for a while if you were a part of the Marvel train or some other like superhero property, but now it's a little more shaky.
Well, it's funny. You make a good point. Like they option these things for like multi-picture deals. I bet if Madam Web does even remotely good overseas, along with a bit of domestic performance here, she'll be back. Yeah, they'll do Madam Web too. She's probably optioned for it. So I mean, we'll see what happens. Good for her though. Speaking her mind. One more story before we get to Anyone But You. Supergirl has been found. James Gunn has his Superman counterpart. Who is it, Andy? Who are we looking forward to here?
So, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, none other than Miss Milly Alcock, who played Rhaenyra Targaryen, the young version of that character in House of the Dragon. She's been selected after an intense auditioning process to play Supergirl in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow film that they're in the middle of pre-production.
One of the things I thought was interesting about this, I have not watched House of the Dragon. I'm aware it's incredible. Just, come on. There's a lot of good TV out there. Give me a break. We do a movie podcast. I don't have much to say about Milly Alcock, but one of the things I did think was interesting is apparently Gunn was flying actresses out to set and having them screen test in physical costume, which is not something that happens a lot anymore.
Oh, nice.
Especially for comic book films. Like this is reportedly very unorthodox. So we used to see this, right? There's that old clip of Nick Cage, like getting dressed up for Tim Burton's Superman, like show up, get in the suit. We want to see what you look like. Apparently Milly Alcock won. So whatever's working there must be working really well because she had to already appear functionally as the character behind closed doors to make it work. I don't know. It sounds like it might work.
Yeah, I'm excited about this feature. The Woman of Tomorrow story arc, which is 7 issues, I believe, 7, 8 issues, is really great. Just came out a couple of years ago. So I like that they're choosing for more recent comics and not looking 50 years back. And, it also tells us that they're not looking for a certain look. Like they're not looking for someone who looks good in the costume. They're looking for a proper actor that can play the character that they've written. So that hopefully means that we have some good character writing and that you want someone who's going to bring presence, not just like look good in the costume and in the poses where they're flying around. And like I said, I've said this before, Supergirl is like a teenager, essentially, very angry. She's got anger issues. Like that, it could be some heat when we see it on screen.
I was going to say it's interesting casting given where DC currently is. Obviously, you've got David Corenswet as Superman. I know we have our Lois Lane, Marvelous Miss Maisel, right? I forget her name. She's tremendous in that show.
Brosnahan.
Yeah, Rachel, right? Yeah, she's great. I was going to say somebody they might have considered looking at was our girl Sydney Sweeney, right? I know she's doing Madam Web, but also more importantly, to get to our review, she is in this new rom-com Anyone But You, opposite Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick. Excited to talk about this one. Didn't expect to watch it, just kind of worked out that way. All right, love was in the air this week. We thought, why not have a rom-com on the show? And it's worth mentioning that although we do a lot of movie reviews and we are big purveyors of bold cinema, we are not against the occasional rom-com. Rom-coms are chill and they're kind of their own thing. It's like a musical, right? Like it's airy and light and fun. Some say it's vapid, others say it's delightful. We're going to find out what Anyone But You is in just a second when I jump into it. So please excuse my clumsy review. The movie is Anyone But You. So Anyone But You is a Shakespeare adaptation. You may not have known. From director Will Gluck, director of Easy A, starring Emma Stone, and Friends with Benefits, starring Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. Anyone But You takes place in Australia, down under. I can't do an accent, I'm sorry. It stars Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick and Sydney Sweeney, most recently of Euphoria, and she was in Reality on HBO. Anyway, the two of these people are star-crossed lovers, all right? They have one exciting night where they meet at a bar downtown in New York, I think, in the States, some city. And they hit it off. Things go great. But then the next morning, something doesn't work out. There's a misconnection, right? And the two of them go their separate ways. Well, 6 months later, they meet again when one's best friend and the other's sister are getting married at a destination wedding in Australia. They both go out, and oh my God, here's the person I can't stand. And everybody at the wedding knows it, right? Like this family knows and that family knows that these two can't stand each other. So they hatch a plan to get the two of them together. They're gonna try to coordinate and maybe whisper through the bushes, and one will overhear one thing, and through the grapevine you'll hear another thing. But these two hatch a plan of their own to get away from everybody, all right? And to not distract from the wedding, they decide to pull the ultimate distraction and act like a couple. That is the bit, right? If you've seen the trailers, it looks like a lot of sun and sunshine and people laughing and having fun. I think Glenn Powell takes his clothes off at one point. The movie is Anyone But You. Andy, what did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughs. I wasn't sure how funny it would be, but like the opening scene already has a couple of good gags. Laughing from the beginning. It's got a lot of jokes. It again, it's a Shakespeare adaptation, so you get a couple of these ridiculous scenes where characters are talking very loudly, so other characters will overhear them. But it's tongue in cheek. It's another one of these on location rom-coms. Actually, you just recently rewatched Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is also non-location rom-com that takes place in Hawaii. So we kind of get that Australia is the backdrop. We get some iconic, like we see the Sydney Opera House and those kinds of landmarks. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have a lot of great chemistry. They're a lot of fun. They're in great physical shape. Like the physiques in Hollywood just keep getting like more and more ridiculous. I think Powell's on the juice, but that's that's neither here nor there. But yeah, but anyways, okay. No, it's a lot of fun, a lot of great laughs, and this has been really successful. It's made $125 million on a $25 million budget, still in theaters, still making money, and it's a good return of the rom-com, which haven't really done very well in the last few years.
I think the thing that works the best about Anyone But You is going to be when our two characters are like biting at each other. You see it a lot in the trailer, but like functionally it's what works. The two of them are very good at throwing insults at each other, real fast one-liners. There's a couple of great conversations they have in the first act where they're just throwing barbs one after another. Boom, 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 boom. And I think that's where the movie has probably the best energy. And then, of course, in your third act, when you will they or won't they, right? Like you hope that your rom-com leads will get it together and that the family will work out and there won't be any disasters at the destination wedding, right? Like I think in its worst moments for me, I think Anyone But You feels a little stereotypical. But like in its best moments, like that's kind of a good thing, you know. God, we're through Oscar season, and I'm so used to watching big bold cinema and 3.5 hour epics in Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon or something wild like Anatomy of a Fall. That like it's really nice to watch something that's like uniquely down to earth, right? Even though it's obviously big and bold in its romantic visions. It is a Shakespeare adaptation in Much Ado About Nothing. I did not put that together till the end. Sorry. I guess I'm a dumb rom-com viewer. I knew there was something going on, and I realized the theme pretty quickly of people like whispering to one another and telling lies. And I thought, man, they should
Very
have called
loudly,
this movie yeah, they should have called this movie Rumor Has It or something. Anyone But You is a forgettable title, but it's fine. Then we get to the end, and I'm like, yes, the denouement. It's Midsummer Night's Dream. Andy, Shakespeare adaptation. Any hot takes on how it came together? I mean, really, it's just loose framework for what the movie's really supposed to be, which is these two getting it together in Australia.
Yeah, we have a lot of our classic tropes, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of people seeing things out of context or hearing things out of context. But it's formulaic, but it's about the like the jokes and the performances. It's really funny. I was in like a half full theater and everyone was laughing. Just a lot of really good jokes and updated as well. The supporting cast is really great. You have Dermot Mulroney showing up as the father. Just a really great supporting cast, and they're going to they're in Australia for one of their friends and or sisters wedding, which is they're in on it too. So that again, you have a fabulous destination wedding. I was just glad that they were actually in Australia and weren't just on green screens or that sort of thing. It's
funny.
It's nice to see that kind of production.
It's funny you say that. Regarding supporting cast, I also wanted to mention Gata, of course. Gata needs his gat. I didn't expect Gata to be in this show, but he is. He's in the FX movie. He's in the FX show Dave. It's like Dave's friend, and I've never seen him in anything else. So when he showed up in this, I was like, oh, it's Gata from Dave. And then the credits rolled, and I was like, oh, his name really is Gata. I thought that was his character name. It's not. Gata needs his gat. Regarding the look of this movie, really odd. Really odd. Nobody's going to care about this at all. This movie's shot in a great aspect ratio. It's real wide. There's shots in this movie where they'll have an entire tennis court laid out like diagonal in frame with the camera like pretty close. Like real wide aspect, big bars on the top and bottom, and that gives you really good landscape, and more importantly, it gives you a lot to frame with. So you'll have a couple characters whispering in the background, blurry out of frame like to the right, and then you'll have your two leads up on the left talking up close like towards the front of the frame. Like you'll have a bit of like they'll be hanging out on a sailboat talking. There'll be like a couple sailboats in the background in the Sydney Opera House. Like understated and small, but really, if you go see this movie in theaters, like keep an eye on how wide the frame is. Like somebody genuinely decided somewhere along the way, hey, we want to show as much as we can in this so we can have a little bit of fun like where we're placing and blocking. And it works. Like it's small. I don't know why I noticed that, but I was like, hey man, somebody really took the time to notice this. So I would probably go to cinematographer. I don't know their name. I'll tell you in just a second when I find it.
Again, our two leads are great. Glenn Powell is just so charismatic. I feel like he's almost like he's got a little bit of a Ryan Reynolds thing going on. Like he's just got like this quick wit and charm, and yeah, he's just a great on-screen presence. We of course saw that in Top Gun Maverick. I think that's what the first time I like really noticed him as an actor, and he's been doing great things since then.
Cinematographer was Danny Ruhlman, who shot Foundation for Apple Plus and Sense8 on Netflix with the Wachowski siblings, right? They did Sense8. Yeah, Glenn Powell's a delight. And you're kind of right with the Ryan Reynolds thing. Like, it's like he's too smart for the room, or he's got that like sharp biting wit that Reynolds has, like same kind of gag. If anything, he might end up playing heels more than heroes, right? Like I know in Top Gun Maverick, he plays Hangman. I think he's slated to be in the next one too. So I mean, he's bolted in there pretty good, barring anything going wrong or him getting goosed in Top Gun 3. Meanwhile, Sydney Sweeney's
don't say it.
Right? Yeah, doesn't take long to think about that. Meanwhile, Sydney Sweeney is a lot of fun. She's simple. and understated. Not what I expected. I haven't watched Euphoria. And in reality, she is a wholly different character in person. Sorry, reality, the HBO project. I don't mean like actual,
About
I'm sure she's
reality
a different person
winner.
too. Yeah, she's an actress. But I guess like when I saw that, I thought, okay, yeah, this is somebody who's really smart. She's playing it understated. She's playing it quiet. She's playing it small. This is the exact opposite character. Big, brash, bold. Says what she does. Says what's on her mind. Doesn't really want to be like just a whole thing. Like, and I think that's a good thing because it gives your characters a bit more dimension than just being like vapid rom-com characters, right? Like there are scenes in this that are a little bit plain, but also like you get some developments that are interesting. Like these, the supporting cast of the family trying to push our characters in one direction while they're implicitly running the opposite. There's one point where Sydney Sweeney's ex shows up to the party to stay via her parents giving him a call. That's a whole thing. Like just some pleasant bumps in the road that give it more than just being like a will they won't they destination 90-minute rom-com. Like, and that's nice, man. I think it's good. I think it shows a little bit of growth in the industry. It's not just so plain Jane. It's something different, and I don't know. But it's also, heartwarmingly plain Jane like any good rom-com.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think I'm ready for recommendations.
Lots of fun. Also, good soundtrack playlist. Surprisingly, decent stuff. Mac Miller, peace. Andy, would you recommend Anyone But You?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. It's a great date movie. It's really funny. It's been very successful. It'll be interesting to see if we kind of see some more rom-coms come out after this, or if Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney do work together more. They have a lot of on-screen chemistry. It's a lot of fun. It's really funny. There's lots of laughs. It follows, some tropes that we love in this genre, and highly recommend.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Anyone But You, like I said, is not big, bold cinema. It's not anything you haven't seen before, but it's unique, like in the way that it doesn't. It just feels like a movie that I haven't seen in a long time. Like it reminds me of watching older rom-coms from back in the day, but feels fresh. I don't know, man. I thought Anyone But You is not bad. Yeah, I think it's a good time if you can catch it in a theater. It seems like it's got legs. It's going to keep doing well, keep turning a profit. So I don't know if they're going to make an Anyone But You 2, but for what's here, not too shabby. I'm glad we watched it. Just a good palate cleanser. Good kind of movie you can just throw on. You don't think too much about it. Like, looks good. Bunny script. Not too shabby. Anyway, we should move on to our next segment of the episode. I'm still kind of putting this together on the background, Andy. I'm still getting these trailers up. But in the meantime, can you tell folks what we're getting into? Can you start us off with our first one?
Yep, it's time for the trailer park. We're going to begin with Roadhouse, which is a remake of the 1980s something classic with Patrick Swayze about a bouncer who goes to kind of settle a wild bar and also find love out there. This remake stars Jake Gyllenhaal as the titular kind of bouncer. I forget his character's name, Dalton. And in this iteration, he's an MMA fighter. And if you've seen pictures of Jake Gyllenhaal, he's like absolutely shredded for this role. Comes out to this bar in like the Florida Keys or something, and has to stop the rabble rousing. Conor McGregor, the MMA fighter, is also in this movie, and he's kind of ridiculous because like he just needs to kind of be himself, and he's trying to be this really weird over the top character that it kind of doesn't work, but I'm sure it'll be fun. Also stars Daniela Melchior. Jake Gyllenhaal's really upset about this because this movie was supposed to have a theatrical release, and then Amazon decided it was just going to go straight to streaming, and him and the director are kind of boycotting it.
Yeah, the PR on this, like Madam Web, has been very funny. But outside of that, movie looks fine. If anything, I am looking forward to a fresh take on, I don't know, something like a big brawl movie. Like I haven't seen one of those in a minute. I guess John Wick kinda. There's a lot more guns and a lot more explosions. I think this will be just a whole lot more fist fighting, and like that's kind of fun. But one of the things I thought was really funny was film Twitter roasting Jake Gyllenhaal for making a movie where he's just like a meathead. People haven't even seen it yet, and they're like, "Oh, why can't you be the freak from Nightcrawler?" Or like, "Can you please be Detective Loki from Prisoners again?" Like what?
Well,
It's
he's done all
so,
these. Yeah, he's done all these heavy acting jobs, so it feels weird for him to like go into like a more like
yeah.
something that you would see the
Ew.
Jack Reacher guy do.
Yeah, why
You
why do you
know,
have a six pack? Why can't you do some weird psychological stuff? Like it's so funny. Anyway, Roadhouse looks all right. That'll be coming March 21st from Amazon. Our next film to talk about, oh man, I got the easy one, Aggro Drift. We got to talk about Aggro Drift, and I can't play the trailer because we'll get copyrighted, but I can show you images of it. Aggro Drift is Harmony Korine's new feature. It's produced in conjunction with Travis Scott, the rapper who's also starring. I know this film is premiering at a Los Angeles strip club, if I heard correctly, and we finally have a trailer
so
for
bizarre.
it. Most importantly, and this is the bit I haven't told you, the entire thing's shot in infrared. If you have seen or heard about Aggro Drift, you probably have seen this alongside it. The whole film shot in infrared. We know it's an action feature that's got guns and explosions, and Travis Scott's in it. That's about all I know. Wow, what a trailer, Andy. Any hot takes?
I mean, it gives me a headache almost looking at it. Like the colors it's too much. It's like the movie where the guy's just in first person the entire time. The action one, I can't remember the name of it, but like
Hardcore Henry. Yeah.
that's the one. Yeah, the gimmick. You can only do that for like a short scene. It's good for like 2-3 minutes. It's hard to watch an entire feature in one like kind of extreme style. So this infrared thing is just it's weird. It's only like an hour long feature. It's not a full like 90 minutes even. So it's a weird time. I wouldn't mind watching part of it, but it just seems kind of a chore. It doesn't seem very interesting, and it's about like an assassin who has to go fight another assassin or something. It's a bizarre storyline too, so yeah, I don't know what to think. It's worth checking out the trailer, but I don't know if I would want to actually see the movie.
Yeah, like I'm more interested in how it's made than what it is. And like especially because the subject matter just seems really thin based on where it's premiering. I don't know. I know Harmony Korine does some weird stuff from Spring Breakers and Gummo, and most importantly, like there's definitely some CGI in here, so it's not exactly just infrared. It's been enhanced and it's been tweaked and colored and changed. And like in that way, like I'm interested in what the movie is, but like I'm probably not gonna go out of my way to catch this. I don't think. Zone of Interest fans know what the real infrared secret is, and like y'all out there have seen what's possible. I don't know if Aggro Drift's it, but what's next, Andy?
Monkey Man, which is the directorial debut from Dev Patel, who of course starred in The Green Knight and a bunch of other films. Big actor right now. And this is produced and kind of endorsed by Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions. This movie looks really awesome. It looks like kind of Indian John Wick. It looks like John Wick's set in Mumbai with Dev Patel, who's apparently like some sort of like martial arts expert, which I had no idea about. And he's been trying to get into action roles because he's like a black belt in something, and he won't get cast in them. So he's just kind of made a movie himself where he is that kind of John Wick style person, and it's a very generic storyline of like, there's corruption here, he's wrong, he's got to fight his way to the top, but the action looks really awesome and over the top.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Dev Patel is fantastic. He was fantastic in David Lowery's The Green Knight. He's been fantastic in previous work. The kid does not get enough of it, apparently, so he's decided to do it himself. You might have also seen the side story. Andy mentioned it. Originally, this movie was going to be produced with Netflix, and Jordan Peele saw it and liked it enough and said, no, Universal should pick this up. So now they're running it, and it's running theatrically, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Like I said, I'm excited to get out and support my boy. Dev Patel was my big pick for James Bond for a minute. He still kind of is, but he won't be James Bond, which is a shame. But, I don't know. I think he could have been it before they decided, hey, it should be somebody who's like 5 years younger than he is. I think kid's got talent, and clearly he's got action chops. Like, why not? Why not? Dude, I'll totally go see Monkey Man. Monkey Man looks rad. One more trailer to talk about before we get to Society of the Snow. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire has an official trailer. Andy, did you see the last Ghostbusters movie? I guess we watched it for the show, right?
Yes, we reviewed it on this very show.
It's still baffling that we have to say the last Ghostbusters movie as if there's like a large series, because at this point there kind of is, right? Outside of the original 84 feature, like we've had a lot of progress. Ghost Heads Rise Up. Like we've had a lot of progress. Besides the second feature, there have been television series, Kenner toys, posters, collectibles, games. We had a 2016 feature that we don't really talk about. And then they had Ghostbusters Answer the Call. I can't even tell you what the last one was called, but it came out just a couple years ago with the kid from Stranger Things and McKenna Grace and God, a couple other people. It's Ghostbusters. There's more Ghostbusters, and now Ghostbusters Returning to New York, Returning to the Firehouse, and all those characters from the previous one are back, along with all the old Ghostbusters coming out of retirement again for the third time, like to make more Ghostbusters stuff. Andy, this looks so different than old Ghostbusters, and it makes me feel like an old man saying that. But
these poor old men having to come out of retirement to play characters they played 40 years ago.
It's just so yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know if they. I mean, they're probably happy to have a paycheck and still be acting into their 70s, but it's the same problem that we saw that arises from The Force Awakens, where you want to have the best of both worlds. You want to have the star power of your legacy characters, and you also want to try and pass the baton on to a younger generation. You end up not doing either one. Like, I would rather just have a movie with just the older Ghostbusters or just the newer Ghostbusters instead of this kind of mix, because what you're going to get is a movie with way too many characters. You're going to have 10 people in ghostbusting suits, which is like, now it's like a football team. The effects don't look good. It's this, frozen, some sort of freezing monster that freezes people and things like this. The special effects are just, it just doesn't look good. And Hollywood's got to find a way to pass the baton, because you can't keep the series going if you don't. Like the Matrix Resurrections has the same problem. It's like you get Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, but then no one cares about who the new characters are, and you can't really pass the baton to them. And this looks really bad to me. I think it's going to bomb.
It's, and it's harrowing a little because Jason Reitman's not involved, right? Like the last film Jason Reitman did, Ivan Reitman, his dad, functionally co-directed it. He was the one who had written and directed the originals with Dan Aykroyd. Like, there was a bit of something to it. Reitman totally ducked on this. He was like, nope, not doing this. I'm out. It's been real. Ghostbusters was a lot of fun. A lot of that creative vision from the last one came from him. This kind of picks up where it left off, but it also looks like a script penned by like Dan Aykroyd in his Crystal Head Vodka era. You know what I mean? Like UFOs did 9/11 kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess I thought that first teaser was fine, and then I saw this and was like, oh no. But good news, if you haven't seen it, we will see it again in theaters in front of probably every other film you see between now and when it comes out. No release date yet. I don't
March
think.
March 22nd is what I see.
Excuse me. Yes. Thank you, YouTube. Those are 4 things worth thinking about. 4 things worth watching. Obviously, there's other trailers. We can't cover them all in the show. But next time we do the trailer park, we want to make sure we get to whatever you're interested in. So, if you like what we're talking about here, you can write into the show and, tell us what trailers are worth taking a look at or what you think of these. Anyway, didn't mean to plug writing into the show. We should talk about Society of the Snow. Andy's taking the summary for it. Andy, please take it away.
Society of the Snow. So this is a new drama directed by J.A. Bayona, who previously did Jurassic World and The Impossible. Major Hollywood director, and it's done a little bit smaller film. This is based on the book by Pablo Vierci and is about the story of the. And I used to get this detail wrong constantly. I kept saying it was a Chilean soccer team, a rugby team from Uruguay that crashed in the Andes Mountains October 1972. And survived kind of miraculously for 2 months in the snow. They had to survive incredible hardships, weather, starvation, disease, and a lot of them did not survive, but 15, 16 of them did survive for 2 months and just about walked out of the mountains. And this story has been made into film and other series multiple times. It was last made in 1994's Alive, which starred none other than Ethan Hawke, which is a great depiction of this. In this version, we have an all Spanish cast, so it's in the original language of the people in involved. The story is the team is flying from Montevideo to Santiago. During the flight, the pilot makes an error, clips a mountain, and the plane goes careening down very close to the Chilean side, but still up in the mountains. Of the 45 passengers on board, 15 are immediately killed in the initial crash. A lot are injured after the plane touches down. Uh, from there, they have to then try and survive the extreme cold, soon starvation. They send rescue teams, but they're just not able to see them because you have a white plane in the White Mountains, and planes fly super high, so they can't really look very clearly. And it's this incredible survival story that's got some really intense moments we'll get into. But that's our basic layout. Zach, what do you think?
Well, Society of the Snow is cool, man. Like Society of the Snow is pretty bold for Netflix. Like I know they produce a lot of films every year, but for what it's worth, like 2.5 hour foreign language feature on the front page like doesn't happen often. And I think a lot of people overlook it for that, right? Like I think they see it, they don't think a lot of Society of the Snow. That's what I'm looking for. I'm glad we're talking about it here. Like, I'm glad we have the opportunity to spend a little time platforming it because I think it's really neat. I think J.O. Bayona has done something kind of tremendous here. And I didn't expect it. Like, I was in the same boat when I started. I was like, whoa, okay, this looks a little long. Subject matter looks tough. Boy, I don't know if I'm going to be in this the whole way. And I can tell you, like, miraculously, you are. I don't know how. I like on paper, you tell me what the story is. You say what time period you want to cover. Oh, the crash. And then half the people don't make it. And then, oh, they're going to land. And then they're going to be down there for what I didn't know when I started the movie was an inordinate amount of time. I wasn't even sure if they were going to make it out. So to me, not knowing the story, not having seen it live, like just going in like anybody else on Netflix, like, yeah, okay, I heard something about this. I'll check it out. I can tell you that, like, I think it was a good experience. That being said, it's harrowing, man. It looks so cold on that mountain. I don't know who did the coloring for this film. Oh my God, it looks cold. I know it caught an Oscar nom for like hair and makeup because these guys are just slowly getting more frostbitten. Like, it looks so miserable up there. And like, that's movie magic. Even if it's the kind that's kind of ugly and you don't want to look at because it's scary and real. And it's like, oh no, like it's truly like the magic of cinema that like this can be presented in this way that feels so convincing. And, like Society of the Snow is really neat. Really neat. And like, I really liked it and I'm glad we watched it. If anything, I wish I could have watched it in a theater. Boy, it probably would have looked great
absolutely.
on the big screen.
Yeah, it would have been tough to sit through in a theater, honestly. One of the infamous parts of this story is the plane crash because it's the rare time where a plane crashed and a lot of people survived, so they could talk about it. But briefly, there was a pilot error where he thought he was flying over the mountains at a little bit where there was a lower spot, but he had misnavigated and there was cloud cover they couldn't really see. At the last minute, they realized they're too close, but they end up clipping the mountains. It shears off the tail. People fly out of the plane. The wings get sheared off. The fuselage kind of lands, doesn't crash, but it lands on in the giant of this big like glacier bowl and slides down this mountain at 200 miles an hour and eventually slams into a snowbank, throwing everyone in the plane forward. It's so harrowing, and it's amazing to think anyone could survive these things, but people did. But that was just the beginning of hardships because a lot of people were severely injured, broken legs, broken bones, crushed to death or crushed half to death. There is no food. There is the mountains get negative 22 at night, but they work hard together to try and stabilize the injured. They find ways to make themselves wars. They build up like a big wall in the fuselage to keep the snow out. And they just like these scenes are harrowing. Like that happens 15 minutes in. Like that's the catalyst of the whole thing. So it throws you right in. There's a couple of other there's a couple of avalanches they have to deal with that. To me, those were the worst scenes because it's very claustrophobic. You can't breathe. Like they're snowed in the plane. People are struggling to get out. It's just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that anyone survived like a fraction of what they went through.
Right. Like on paper, it reads like a bottle script, right? Like you got your core cast, they're in one location, they're not going to leave. That's pretty much what we've got, right? Like for the most of your script, your characters are in this valley, in this plane fuselage, doing their thing. Doesn't sound that complicated. Like wrong. Like Bayona directed The Impossible, right? In 2012, that covered the Indian Ocean tsunami and the fallout of that through the eyes of this family, played by Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor and a couple of kiddos. One of which I think went on to do something big.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, yeah, right, yeah, he was in that movie, yeah. So he's got experience doing this, and like one of the things that makes Society of the Snow work is that it's so remarkably grounded. Like not only does it look cold on that mountain, like it genuinely looks like this is shot outside with no studio shots ever. Like the illusion is never broken that you're like on a set filming with these guys. Like it just looks miserable out there all the time. And then things start to happen to the set, right? Like Andy said, then an avalanche rolls in, and then you have a drastic reorganization of how things are working and where we're shooting. At night, there is no light. We are down to nothing, right? Like as resources are dwindling, like we have to show the plane and the people getting more torn up in it. And the amount of time that this goes over, like, is wild. It is bananas. And Andy and I were talking about just before the show. I'm like, I don't know if I would want to go through it, right? You'd be like, God, just give me a way out, you know? Like, it's so rough. And it ends up being this story of like human resilience, but at the same time, like quite the journey of struggle from A to B to C to get to the end of the feature. And like it's really well crafted. Like it's really well put together. Like not only in its presentation, but in smaller sequences. Have we talked about the crash? We got to talk about the crash, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I talked about the crash a lot, but what were you going to say about it?
I was going to say this crash scene is incredible. Like it is a truly incredible kinetic crash scene where you're and like through the sequence of the plane crash, you have movement following movement across the frame as the camera is bouncing around, like to what these guys are doing. Like it is really, really well directed. And like otherwise, looking at Bayona's background, like I wouldn't have thought much. He did Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Didn't really love that movie. I wasn't alone. I got a 6.1 on IMDb. All right, give me a break. Like I wouldn't have thought he would be turning out something that feels so special on Netflix of all places, right? Like normally Netflix is a little bit their 7-year film chief is leaving because it's not working out. Like somehow like a spark in the rubble, right? Like something special here. Society of the Snow, I think, is unique.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really harrowing feature. One of the things I wanted to talk about is, so they had no food, and one of the infamous things about this story is that they eventually resorted to having to consume the dead, otherwise known as cannibalism, to survive. And this is a huge kind of philosophical struggle in the movie. No one wants to do it at first because they're like, no, that's terrible. We're desecrating the dead. We're going to go to hell. And eventually, just starvation takes over, and they're in the no animals. There's no vegetation. There's nothing to eat. They have a few rations from the plane that last just a few days, and so there's a big philosophical battle to like, what do we do and who do we eat and how to, and it's really incredible because what they end up doing is 2 people volunteer to kind of butcher the bodies to provide the meat, but that way other people don't have to see it done or see who they're eating. It's a huge like part of the thing, and it was a big almost scandal when that was revealed that was part of how they had survived. But they wouldn't have survived the 2 months they were up there without that. And I remember reading that the 2 people who eventually were able to climb out and go get help were like, they weighed like 100 pounds by the time they got out of there. It's just incredible.
Yeah, like it really is like million to one shot that it happened, and then to follow that up, anybody made it, much less a group of them. Yeah, it's really committed to realism, even in its presentation of its actors and actresses. Like there's comparison photos you can find online between who they cast and the original like photos of people, and like they even look close. They have family and friends like work directly with the cast to get as much of it like as uniquely accurate as possible. which is really specific and interesting. Like, it doesn't often happen with features like this. Normally it's like, ginned up for Hollywood. No, this is kind of the opposite. It's stripped down for Hollywood. Like, it's simplified, and it's tough, and it's challenging, but it also ends up being like, I don't know, really inspiring. Like, overall, like a really cool feature that I'm really glad we got to spend time with. And like I said, like, it's one that I feel like I would have just blown by. I wouldn't have paid too much attention to. Like, I'm glad I took the time with. Andy, you ready for recommendations?
I am.
Andy, would you recommend Society of the Snow?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible movie. It's an incredible story of these people that survived and were able to just band together, work together, battle against all odds, and survive this incredible situation. A lot of them did not. Only a third of the people on the plane survived the entire ordeal. It's it's a sad thing to see. More survived the initial crash, but then there were so many between food and injuries and the elements. It was just really difficult, but incredibly harrowing feature. Like I said, it's in Spanish, all Spanish cast. Really enjoyed it. Highly recommend.
Same for me. Would recommend. Like I said, the content's a little weird going in. I get it, but like just in the first like 20 minutes, the movie puts you on rails and won't let go. Like, I think you should give it a shot. I know it's tough, but like, so is watching Titanic, right? And like, there's still something redeemable and tremendous about that, even though you know that like there's gonna be some troubles along the way. Like, I think it's a good time. I really do. Society of the Snow's rad. I'm looking forward to what Bayona does next. Hopefully it's not another Jurassic World feature. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So we're on break next week because I'm traveling, but we'll be back on February 13th with Argyle. We'll finally find out who the real Agent Argyle is, and that's February 2nd. And then Lisa Frankenstein, which is the new Frankenstein musical starring Catherine Newton. That comes out February 9th. And also, we'll be looking forward to some other releases in February, namely Madam Web, which comes out February 14th, just in time for Valentine's Day. And if you're interested in the Bob Marley biopic, Bob Marley, One Love, that's also coming out on February 14th.
If you enjoyed what we're doing on Off Script here on the show today, if you like our news segments, or you liked our Anyone But You review, or you were maybe middling on Trailer Park, or have hot takes on Society of the Snow, any and all of the above, the best way to get a hold of us is to write into the show at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Email direct. I know it's easy to comment on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can do that too. We'll probably take a look at it. You can even leave a comment over on YouTube. Big things happening on the Off Script YouTube channel. I say it every week. There's big things happening every week. I don't know what to tell you. You got to go check it out. And of course, you can find the show anywhere you find your audio podcasts. You may have been listening to us right now there. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. We're everywhere. And we're excited to be talking about movies. Episode 250 is coming up. It's going to be big things for episode 250. And Andy and I got irons in the fire. All right. It's going to be fantastic. So keep an ear out for that. And look forward to our Argyle review in a couple of weeks. I personally can't wait to find out who Agent Argyle is, Andy. I don't know about you. It can't be the cat. Surely it can't be the cat. Everybody will be sitting in theaters thinking,
scream if it's the cat.
If it's, I hope, if it's the cat, we just both need to stand up together and walk out in unison, middle of the film. That'll be our review. It was the cat. That'll be it. And of course, one more plug. You can find our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, for all things Offscript Film Review, resources, links, interviews, trailers, stuff, whatever we got going on. That's where it'll be. So from all of us at Offscript, the home of Bold Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.